Okay, so we're gonna, up here on the board, the formulas that are up here, y'all, these are things we already know. We've talked about this already. Tangent is sine over cosine, and we call it a quotient identity because we're dividing. And then cotangent is cosine over sine. And so my reciprocal identities, y'all, we've done this too. The sine is the reciprocal of the cosecant. The cosine is the reciprocal of the secant, and the tangent is the reciprocal of the cotangent. Okay? So we've talked about all of these already. Come back here, I'll show you a second. Come back here. Be on time to school. Good catch. Okay, so the other thing I want to tell you is, if I told you that the sine is 5 over 6, if the sine is 5 over 6, and I asked for the cosecant is 6 over 5. I just flip it, right? They're reciprocals. If I told you the cosine is 3 over 4, and I asked for the secant is 4 over 3. Okay? If I tell you the tangent is 1/2, the cotangent is 2. All right? That's what reciprocal means. We flip it. All right? So if I look, the secant of theta is the square root of 30 over 3, and I want the cosine. What do I know about cosine and secant? They are reciprocals, so we're going to flip them. We're going to flip them. So the cosine is -3 over the square root of 30. Can I have the square root of 30 on the bottom? No, so what am I multiplying by? So I'm going to multiply by the square root of 30 over the square root of 30. So I'm going to get -3 square roots of 30 over, now what is the square root of 30 times the square root of 30? 30. And then we can reduce. So I'm going to get negative square root of 30 over 10. Is that okay? Just flip. So the same would work if it said this was the cosecant and I wanted the sine. Flip. Cotangent, tangent. Just a flip. Okay? They're reciprocals. All right, so the next one, I got the tangent, and I got the cosine, and I want to find the sine. So what am I going to use? Am I going to use 1 over the cotangent? Is that going to help me? I need to find one that has tangent, cosine, and sine. I need all 3 of them. Is there one that has the 3 of them? What's at the very top? What does tangent equal? Sine over cosine. So is that all 3 things together? So if I have 2 of them, I can find the third. So my tangent is, so I have tangent is sine over cosine. So my tangent is the square root of 2 over 4. I don't know my sine. And my cosine is -2 square root of 2 over 3. So if I multiply, that gives me my sine, doesn't it? And that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to get the sine of x. It's going to be the square root of 2 over 4 times -2 square root of 2 over 3. So if I multiply, square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is what? It is 4, but what's the square root of 4? 2. So remember, they always match, right? The square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is 2. So I get 2 times negative 2 gives me negative 4, and 4 times 3 is 12. So I get a negative 1/3, and that's my sign. Is everybody good? Okay, so I have cosecant, cotangent, and secant. So first of all, y'all, is there anything up here that has cotangent, cosecant, and secant? Do you see it anywhere? It's not there. My cotangent would be cosine over sine, right? But I don't have anything else. So, if my cotangent would be cosine over sine, what is the cosecant? What is that the reciprocal of? Sine. So if I flip it, does that give me my sine? So my sine is 3 over 7. So my cotangent is going to equal cosine over sine. So my cotangent is negative 2 square root of 10 over 3, and it equals cosine, well, I don't have cosine, over sine. So y'all, but the cosine isn't the secant. But what's true about cosine and secant? So if I find the cosine, then I can just flip it at the end and that'll give me my secant. Right? So when I multiply, I'm going to get 3 over 7 times negative 2 square root of 10 over 3. So what happens with my 3's? They cancel. So my cosine equals negative 2 square root of 10 over 7. So that gives me my cosine, but I want secant. So I'm going to have to flip that, correct? So my secant is going to equal 7, negative 7 over 2 square root of 10. Do I have a square root of 10 at the bottom? No. And y'all, I left the negative on top. Does it matter if the negative goes on top or bottom? It doesn't matter. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply by the square root of 10 over the square root of 10. So I get negative 7 square root of 10 over, square root of 10 times the square root of 10 is 10 times 2, 20. So there's your answer. Any questions? Y'all give me a thumbs up if you're okay. Yeah? Give me a thumbs down if you're not. Tell me what you're confused with. Because I want to answer before I go on. I'm asking. You're not the only one. Everybody else is lying. Do you not have a specific question? You're just confused? Okay. So, I'm following these. Okay? And so, the reciprocal means we just flip. So, if I tell you that sine is 5 over 6, then my cosecant is 6 over 5. And if I tell you cosine is 3 over 4, then secant is 4 over 3. I'm just flipping. Because they're reciprocal functions. Okay? And so you're going to get to keep your yellow paper, all right? And I'll leave this on the board. Okay? So let's keep going. But when I get to a point and you really are confused, ask. Okay? Anybody else? Did you have a question or you're okay? You guys, girls? You're okay? Okay. Okay. So on the next page, there's the Pythagorean identities. And y'all, why do you think they're called the Pythagorean identities? What do you think we use to find them? The Pythagorean theorem, right? A squared plus b squared is c squared. And so I can show you how we get these formulas, but I know you don't care. These are the formulas. So we're going to have sine squared plus cosine squared equals 1. Tangent squared of theta plus 1 equals secant squared. And cotangent theta plus 1 equals secant squared. Okay, so those are formulas. They're on the board, and they're on that yellow sheet. Okay? You see them? Pythagorean identities. So, what am I looking for? Cosine. I'm looking for cosine and tangent. Does everybody see that? I need two things this time. And my sine is a negative 1/3. That's all I'm given. And then I'm given that the cotangent is less than 0. So I need to find cosine and I need to find tangent. So first of all, I need something that has sine and cosine in it. But that's it. Because I only have sine. So is there a formula up there that would have sine and cosine together? Right? The cosine squared plus the sine squared equals 1. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to substitute my sine squared in. So I'm going to have cosine squared of theta plus negative 1/3 squared equals 1. So will this give me my cosine when I find this? I'll find my cosine. Need a calculator too. Okay. So this is going to give me my cosine, correct? All right, so here's the next thing I want to talk about. I have another piece of information over here. It says the cotangent of theta is less than 0. Now, what is the cotangent equal to? It's cosine over sine, correct? So my cosine over sine is less than 0. That means it has to be negative. Is that correct? My sine value, is it positive or negative? My sine value is negative. What does that mean my cosine has to be? It has to be positive, right? If it was negative, I'd get a negative divided by negative, which would be positive, and that would be bigger than 0. So my cosine, I know, has to be positive. And the reason that's important is because we're about to take the square root. And when you take the square root, how many answers do you get? You get a positive and a negative. Well, which one am I going to choose for my cosine? I'm going to choose the positive one. Okay, so I'm going to have cosine squared of theta plus, what's negative 1/3 squared? What's negative 1 times negative 1? 1. 3 times 3 is 9. So I squared this. Now, I need my 1 to be a common denominator. So what's the denominator here? So I want this to be 9 also. So what goes on top? 9, right? Because 9 divided by 9 is 1. So how do I get the cosine squared by itself? Are all of you asleep today? I'm going to start throwing ice or something. We'll have Diet Coke on it. It's going to be messy. I am going to subtract the 1/9. When I subtract 1/9, I get 8/9. And we just talked about now I'm going to take the square root. And when I take the square root, how many answers do I get? 2. I get a plus and a minus. I get the square root of 8. What is the square root of 9? 3. Now, we just said that the cosine had to be the positive answer. So I'm going to choose the positive answer. Now, I have the square root of 8, which is 4 times 2. What's the square root of 4? 2. So I get 2 square root of 2 over 3. So that gives me my cosine. Which one are we choosing? So this gives me my cosine. So I have cosine and sine now. And what's the last thing I have to find? Tangent. And what is tangent equal to? Tangent is sine over cosine. Do I have both of those? Mm-hmm. Yep. So we can find that. It's going to be sine, which is negative 1/3 over my cosine, which is 2 squared to 2 over 3. Right? Sine over cosine. What do I change the division to? Multiply, and then what do I do with the bottom one? Flip, right? That's how we divide fractions. So multiply, and I'm going to flip this. So my 3's will cancel, and I get negative 1 over 2 square root of 2. Can I have a square root of 2 on the bottom? No. So what is the square root of 2 times the square root of 2? 2. 2 times 2 is 4. So I'm going to get negative square root of 2 over 4. Here's my guess. My guess is if you're having a hard time, it has nothing to do with the precal. It has to do with the fraction and rationalizing the denominator. That's my guess. This is fun. You're solving puzzles. This is fun. I don't know how many times I have to keep telling you guys how much fun you're having. I think they are having fun, but they're afraid to show it because they don't want you to know how much fun they're having. It's okay. I'm used to this. It's fine. I love it. Okay. So this really is, it's not really mathy, right? It's kind of like a puzzle, literally a puzzle. So it's fun. It's fun. All right, here's what I need. I have tangent, I have sine, and I have secant. I want to find my tangent, I want to find my sine, and I'm given secant. And then what else did it tell me? It told me that sine is positive. Right? Okay. So, what do y'all think? I'm given secant. Is there anything with secant and tangent in it? Look in your Pythagorean line. Anything with secant and tangent together? Yes. So, can we start there? So I have tangent squared plus 1 equals secant squared. Yeah? Okay. So I have this, so I feel like I can find my tangent. Do we agree on that? Does everybody see that? So the next thing before I start, y'all, just for my own peace of mind here, my secant, what else can I get if I have secant, what else do I know? What is cosine equal? The cosine is 5/6, right? So I know that too. Okay, so my tangent, I don't know, tangent squared of x plus 1 equals my secant squared, which is 6/5 squared. Everybody good? So this is the part you don't like, right? 6/5 squared. This is the 4th grade math part. 6/5 squared, what's 6 times 6? And 5 times 5? Okay. So if this is 36/25, I want to change my 1. I need common denominator. So what goes on top over here? 25, it has to match. So I have tangent squared of x plus 25/25 equals 36/25. Okay. Thank you. Now the tangent squared by itself, friends, what do? I subtract. So 36 minus 25 is going to give me 11. So next, I have to take the square root, correct? So y'all, how many answers do I get when I take the square root? 2. So I get plus or minus, I have the square root of 11/5. So now, before I go any further, I have to know if the tangent is positive or negative. That's what I need to know. So, is my sine positive or negative? This is positive. Is my cosine positive or negative? So tangent is sine divided by cosine. So if it's positive divided by positive, my answer has to be positive. So I have to choose the positive. So the next thing I need is my sine. But I know tangent and I know my cosine. So can I find my sine? Because it's sine over cosine is tangent. So I'm going to do the square root of 11/5 equals sine over my cosine value, which was 5/6. So now, can I just multiply and get the sine? So I'm going to get sine of x equals the square root of 11/5. And what happens to my square roots? I mean my 5s. They cancel. And my sine is the square root of 11/6. Is that positive? And it had to be positive, so we're all good.